Imagine a man who could walk into any room, take on any role, and make you believe he was the real deal. A man who performed surgeries without a medical degree, managed a prison without any experience, and commanded a ship without ever attending naval school. This isn't the plot of a Hollywood movie. This is the real-life story of Ferdinand Waldo Demara, better known as the Great Impostor. Ferdinand Waldo Demara was a master of disguise, a man of many roles and many secrets. We know more about his lies than his reality. He pretended to be so many people in his life that we know almost nothing about the real him. Ferdinand Waldo Demara was born in Lawrence, Massachusetts in 1921. His early life was a patchwork of failed attempts and courageous dreams. He wanted the status associated with roles like a priest or a military officer, but lacked the qualifications and education to achieve them. At just 16 years old, he tried to join a Trappist monastery, lying about his age to gain entry. This was likely his first successful con. Demara's stay with the monks didn't last long. His lack of discipline and a temperament that didn't fit the monastic life led to his expulsion. Despite this setback, he didn't give up on seeking high-status roles. He then attempted to join the Brothers of Charity Children's Home in West Newbury, Massachusetts, but his inability to follow the rules led him to steal a car and some money before moving on. In 1941, at age 19, Demara joined the army. But military life didn't suit him either. Dissatisfied, he stole a friend's identity and fled to join the Navy instead. During his time in the Navy, Demara was accepted into medical training but didn't advance due to his lack of formal education. Undeterred, he forged documents to apply for medical school. However, his fake papers were discovered, and he was caught. Demara faked his death and went on the run again. In 1942, Demara assumed the identity of Dr. Robert Linton French, a former Navy officer and psychologist. He found French's details in an old college brochure and used them to work as a college teacher until the end of World War II. Demara's deception worked until he was eventually caught and prosecuted for desertion. His good behavior led to a reduced sentence of 18 months. Upon his release, Demara reinvented himself as Cecil Hamann and enrolled at Northeastern University. Getting tired of the effort required to complete his law degree, he awarded himself a PhD and took up a teaching post at the Brothers of Christian Instruction, a Christian college in Maine, in the summer of 1950. While there, Demara met Canadian Dr. Joseph Cyr, who was moving to the U.S. to set up a medical practice. Cyr entrusted Demara with his identifying documents for immigration paperwork. After their paths parted, Demara took copies of Cyr's paperwork and moved to Canada. Pretending to be Dr. Cyr, he approached the Canadian Navy with an ultimatum: make me an officer or I will join the Army. To avoid losing a trained doctor, the Navy fast-tracked his application. As a commissioned officer during the Korean War, Demara first served at the Stadacona Naval Base. He convinced other doctors to contribute to a medical booklet he claimed to be producing for lumberjacks in remote parts of Canada. Using this booklet and his knowledge from the U.S. Navy, Demara successfully passed as Dr. Cyr. In 1951, Demara was transferred to serve as the ship's doctor on the destroyer HMCS Cayuga. Stationed off the coast of Korea, he relied heavily on his sick berth attendant Petty Officer Bob Horchen to handle minor injuries and complaints. Horchen appreciated having a superior who didn't interfere with his work and allowed him to take on more responsibilities. When 3 Korean refugees arrived needing medical attention, Demara used textbooks and Horchen's help to treat them, even performing an amputation. His surprisingly competent handling of the situation earned him a praising recommendation. However, the real Dr. Sear's mother recognized him from a newspaper photo. To avoid scandal, the Canadian government decided to deport Demara back to the U.S. in November 1951. Back in America, Demara's story hit the headlines. He sold his story to Life magazine in 1952 and started working various short-term jobs under his own name. Although he enjoyed the prestige of his impersonations, he began to dislike his life as Ferdinand Waldo Demara. He gained weight and developed a drinking problem, but he wasn't finished. In 1955, Demara adopted the identity of Ben W. Jones and disappeared again. Under this new name, he worked as a guard at Huntsville Prison in Texas and was put in charge of the maximum security wing. In 1956, a prisoner recognized him from the Life magazine article and reported him to prison officials. Despite denying his true identity and highlighting positive feedback from staff and inmates, Demara fled. He was captured in North Haven, Maine in 1957 and served a 6-month prison sentence. After his release, Demara appeared on several television shows, including the game show You Bet Your Life, and made a cameo in the horror film The Hypnotic Eye. From then until his death in 1981, Demara struggled to escape his past notoriety. He eventually returned to the church, was ordained under his own name, and worked as a counselor at a hospital in California. Demara's success as an impostor can be attributed to his exceptional memory and knowledge accumulated through his impersonations. His charisma and keen understanding of human nature helped him deceive those around him. Studies of con artists show that they are skilled actors, and their schemes are like elaborate performances where only the victim is unaware of what's really happening. Demara took advantage of workplace habits and social conventions. He demonstrated why relying solely on paper qualifications can be risky. His habit of delegating tasks was allowed him to avoid being tested and earned him appreciation from junior staff. In academia, Demara observed opportunities to gain power and authority. He created his own committees instead of joining existing ones, setting himself up as an authority figure without threatening others. He used this strategy to avoid conflict and scrutiny. Marketing and psychology expert Robert Cialdini's research on persuasion offers insight into how people like Demara succeed and why others believe them. Cialdini identified 6 universal principles of influence: reciprocity, consistency, social proof, likability, authority, and scarcity. Demara effectively used these principles in his impersonations. He delegated power to subordinates, reciprocity, manipulated organizations by using others' credentials, consistency, and social proof, and leveraged his charm and authoritative presence, likability, and authority. His choice of high-demand careers also made his impersonations more convincing. Scarcity. Demara's story serves as a reminder of how appearance and intuition often overshadow concrete proof. When asked why he committed his crimes, Demara simply responded, "Rascality, pure rascality." His life of deception and his audacious acts remain a fascinating study in manipulation and human psychology. Demara's ability to weave elaborate lies and maintain multiple identities offers a compelling glimpse into the mind of one of history's most intriguing con artists.